Captain James Walker stood in the darkness of the bridge, his face lit only by the glow of screens showing the Dominion fleet. His ship, the Endurance, hung motionless in space, hidden behind the moon of a gas giant. The stealth technology they used wasn't perfect, but it was good enough to keep them invisible to the aliens who thought they had killed every last human in the galaxy. "Status report," James said quietly. His second-in-command, Officer Ben Miller, looked up from his station. "All systems running silent, Captain. The Dominion ships have no idea we're here." James nodded and turned his attention back to the main screen. The alien ships were gathering for some kind of celebration. It had been exactly 5 years since the fall of Earth, and the alien leaders wanted to mark their victory. "They're dividing up our worlds," said Anna Reed, the ship's intelligence officer. She pointed to different sections of the screen. "The Krell are taking the outer colonies. The Varl get our mining operations. And Earth," her voice broke slightly. "Earth belongs to the High Council now." James clenched his jaw. The 5-ship fleet of the Endurance and its sister vessels were all that remained of humanity's once proud space force, or so the Dominion believed. For 5 years they had hidden, watched, and gathered information. They were ghosts, moving unseen through what used to be human space. "Sir," Ben said, "we're receiving the broadcast. They're starting their victory speeches." "Put it on," James ordered. The crew needed to hear this. They needed to remember what they were fighting for. The screen changed to show a grand hall filled with aliens of different shapes and sizes. At the center stood General Dorn, leader of the Krell forces that had led the final assault on Earth. His gray, scaled skin reflected the bright lights as he raised his 4 arms for silence. "Today we celebrate the end of the human threat," Dorn announced to cheers. 5 years ago, we cleansed the galaxy of their unpredictable violence. Their warlike nature made them too dangerous to be allowed to spread among the stars. James watched the faces of his crew harden. There were only 23 of them on board, survivors who had been on deep space missions when Earth fell. For 5 years, they had lived with the belief that they might be the last humans alive. "The human territories have been properly distributed," Dorn continued. "Their resources now serve the greater good of the Dominion. Never again will we face the threat of human unpredictability." James turned away from the screen. "Cut the feed," he ordered. "We've heard enough." The bridge fell silent. Anna wiped a tear from her cheek. "We should contact the others," Ben suggested. "The remaining ships." "No," James cut him off. "Radio silence remains in effect. We stick to the plan." The plan. It was all they had now. 5 ships, moving separately, gathering intelligence, and looking for one thing: confirmation. James moved to the star map at the rear of the bridge. He touched a spot far from their current position, beyond the edge of what had been human space, a place called Haven. "Communications officer," James called. Lisa Clark moved to his side. "Yes, Captain." "Prepare a data packet. All the information we've gathered on Dominion fleet movements, planetary defenses, and resource allocation. We'll launch it next time we pass a relay beacon." Lisa nodded. "For Haven, sir." "For Haven," James confirmed. "If the Exodus succeeded, they need to know what they're facing. The Exodus, the last desperate hope of humanity. 70 years ago, before the war with the Dominion had even begun, Earth's scientists had discovered an unmapped wormhole. In secret, they had built colony ships. When the first attacks came, and humanity realized the true threat they faced, nearly 300,000 people, scientists, engineers, soldiers, and families, had escaped through the wormhole to a distant star cluster. If they had made it, if they had survived, they would have spent these decades building, preparing, waiting for the right moment. But no one on the Endurance knew if the Exodus had succeeded. No signals had ever returned through the wormhole network. "Captain," Ben called suddenly, "we're picking up a transmission from Terran Prime." James frowned. Terran Prime, the new name the Dominion had given to Earth. "It's on an old human frequency," Ben added. Very weak. Put it through, James ordered. Static filled the bridge, then a broken voice came through. To any human ships, resistance on Earth continues. We are not defeated. Repeat, we are not defeated. The bridge crew froze, staring at each other in disbelief. Can we trace it? James demanded. Lisa was already working at her station. It's coming from the northern continent, sir. Old North America. There are survivors on Earth, Anna whispered. After all this time, James gripped the edge of his console. Can we respond? Lisa shook her head, not without giving away our position. The Dominion would detect any transmission we send. The message continued. Dominion conducting experiments, searching for something. They fear us still. They believe more humans escaped. They know about Haven, James realized. Or at least, they suspect. The message cut out suddenly, replaced by static. Lost it, sir, Ben reported. Could be interference, or the sender had been discovered. James didn't need to say it. New course, James decided. We're going to Earth. Captain. Ben looked shocked. That's suicide. The Dominion defenses. We don't land, James clarified. We get close enough to scan for human life signs. If there's a resistance, we need to know. For 5 years, the crew of the Endurance had drifted through space like ghosts, watching and waiting. Now, they had a purpose. Marcus Reed moved quickly through the underground tunnels. The old subway system had been abandoned long before the invasion, but it served the resistance well. Behind him, 2 of his most trusted fighters carried the radio equipment they had just used to send their message. Do you think anyone heard? Asked Tom, the younger of the 2. Someone's listening, Marcus replied with certainty. They've always been listening. They reached a junction and Marcus held up his hand, stopping the group. Ahead they could hear the heavy footsteps of Dominion security forces, most likely Krell soldiers, based on the sound. This way, Marcus whispered, pointing to a side passage. The 3 humans moved silently through the darkness. They had learned to live like this, in the shadows of their own world. The Dominion thought they had broken humanity's spirit when they bombarded Earth's major cities. They were wrong. 10,000 humans still lived on Earth, hiding in the ruins and forgotten places. For 5 years, they had watched the aliens take over their planet, rename it Terran Prime, and begin their experiments. Marcus had seen the laboratories. He had seen what the Dominion was doing to captured humans. They were studying them, trying to understand what made humans such fierce opponents. The Dominion had faced many species in their expansion, but none had fought like humans. And the aliens were afraid. Despite their victory celebration, despite their confidence, Marcus could see the fear in them. They suspected that some humans had escaped, that somewhere beyond their reach, humanity was rebuilding. We need to get back to base, Marcus told his companions. The others need to know what we found in the research center. What they had found was proof. The Dominion was developing weapons specifically designed to combat human biology and technology. They were preparing for another war, a war against an enemy they claimed was already extinct. Marcus smiled grimly as he led his team deeper into the tunnels. The aliens were right to be afraid, because if humans had survived elsewhere, they wouldn't stay hidden forever. They would return. And when they did, the Dominion would learn what humanity was truly capable of. The massive shipyard of Haven stretched as far as the eye could see. Commander Thomas Reed stood at the observation deck, watching as workers put the final touches on the flagship Retribution. The ship was unlike anything humans had built before, a perfect blend of the best human engineering and reverse-engineered alien technology. Impressive, isn't it? A voice said behind him. Thomas turned to see Admiral Kate Wilson approaching in her hover chair. At 92 years old, the Admiral's body was failing, but her mind remained as sharp as ever. She had been just 22 when she led the exodus from Earth 70 years ago. Now she was seeing her life's work come to completion. The fleet will be ready on schedule, Admiral. Thomas reported, standing straighter. All 217 ships. Kate nodded, her eyes fixed on the retribution. I never thought I'd live to see this day, she admitted. When we arrived here, we had nothing but colony ships and a few old fighters. Thomas understood what she meant. He had been born on Haven, part of the first generation of humans to never set foot on Earth. His parents had told him stories of the blue oceans and green forests of their home world. To Thomas, Earth was just a legend, but one worth fighting for. The final weapon tests were completed yesterday, Thomas said. The phase shift cannons work better than we hoped. The Dominion has nothing that can stand against them. Kate's expression remained serious. Don't underestimate the enemy, Commander. They've had 70 years to advance their own technology. But they haven't been preparing for us, Thomas pointed out. They think we're extinct. That's our only advantage, Kate agreed, and we must use it well. She pulled a data tablet from her chair and handed it to Thomas. The latest intelligence from our scouts. The wormhole network remains unguarded. The Dominion never discovered its full extent. Thomas reviewed the information. For the past 20 years, Haven had been sending small, stealthy scout ships back through the wormhole to gather intelligence. The reports painted a clear picture. The Dominion had grown complacent in their victory. They had divided the former human territories among themselves and stripped the resources from many worlds. Operation Homecoming begins tomorrow, Kate announced. The Council has given final approval. Thomas felt his heart rate increase. This was what they had been working toward for 70 years, the return to reclaim their stolen worlds. The Retribution will lead the first wave, Kate continued. You will take the fleet through the wormhole and establish a forward base in the Proxima system. From there, we'll launch simultaneous strikes against key Dominion installations. Thomas nodded. And Earth. Earth comes later, Kate said firmly. We need to secure our position first. Remember, Commander, this isn't just about revenge. It's about the survival of our species. Thomas looked back at the Retribution. The ship represented humanity's future, a future that would no longer hide in the shadows. Lisa Gray kept her head down as she walked through the corridors of the Dominion Research Station. For 3 years, she had maintained her cover as a human collaborator, working with the aliens who had destroyed her world. Every day was a struggle not to reveal her true feelings, especially when she saw what they were doing to her fellow humans in the laboratories. She entered her security code and slipped into the main research lab. The room was empty. Perfect. The Krell scientists were attending a mandatory briefing with General Dorn, giving Lissa the opportunity she needed. Quickly, she moved to the main computer terminal and inserted a small device into the port. The technology was crude by Dominion standards, but it would copy the files she needed without triggering any alarms. Download initiated. The device blinked. Estimated time, 3 minutes. Lisa kept watch on the door while the download progressed. What she was stealing would confirm what the Resistance had suspected for years. The Dominion was fracturing from within. The screen flashed as files copied over. Reports from the High Council, military assessments, research proposals. And then she saw it, a file marked Human Threat Analysis. She opened it quickly, scanning the contents. What she read made her blood run cold. Possibility of human survival beyond known space. 63% probable, the report stated. Intercepted communications suggest organized resistance persists on Terran Prime and outer colonies. Recommend increased security measures and acceleration of anti-human weapon development. The Dominion knew. They suspected that humans had escaped, that somewhere beyond their reach, humanity was rebuilding, and they were afraid. A noise from the corridor made Lisa freeze. The download was at 89%. She needed more time. The door slid open, and a Krell scientist entered. He stopped when he saw Lisa, his 4 eyes narrowing suspiciously. Human, he said, what are you doing here? This area is restricted during council briefings. Lisa forced herself to smile. Dr. Vex, I was just preparing the samples for your return. General Dorn mentioned you would need them immediately after the briefing. The Krell moved closer, looking at the terminal. What is displayed on the screen? The download was at 97%. Lisa shifted slightly, blocking his view. Just the sample catalog, Doctor. Would you like me to explain the organization system again? The Krell hated being reminded of anything that suggested they couldn't understand human systems. As expected, he stepped back. That won't be necessary, he said coldly. Finish your work and leave. Of course, Doctor, Lisa replied, keeping her voice steady despite her racing heart. The Krell moved to another part of the lab, but continued watching her. The download completed with a soft peep that Lisa hoped wasn't audible to alien ears. She quickly removed the device and slipped it into her pocket. The samples are ready, she announced, moving away from the terminal. Will there be anything else? The Krell waved her away. Go. Lisa walked out of the lab, maintaining a normal pace despite her urge to run. The information she had stolen needed to reach the Resistance, and if the rumors were true, if humans from beyond the stars were really returning, they would need this intelligence. On the bridge of the Retribution, Thomas stood before his crew. They were passing through the wormhole in 1 hour, and he needed them to understand what they were fighting for. Many of us have never seen Earth, he began. We were born here on Haven, raised on stories of a world we've never known. But today we begin the journey to take back what belongs to us. The crew listened in silence. Some were young, born on Haven like Thomas. Others were older, survivors of the Exodus who had waited 70 years for this moment. The Dominion believes humans are extinct, Thomas continued. They believe they eliminated our threat forever. Today, we proved them wrong. On the main screen, the wormhole entrance glowed with blue energy. Beyond it lay the galaxy that had once been humanity's home, now controlled by the species that had tried to wipe them out. We are not seeking only revenge, Thomas said, echoing Admiral Wilson's words. We are fighting for our right to exist, for our future. The ship's engines hummed with power as they approached the wormhole. 216 other vessels moved in perfect formation behind them, the culmination of 70 years of planning and building. Send the signal to all ships, Thomas ordered. Operation Homecoming has begun. The Retribution entered the wormhole, leading humanity's Armada back to the stars they had been forced to abandon. The Dominion thought humans were extinct. They were about to learn how wrong they were. The human fleet emerged from the wormhole at the edge of the Proxima system. 217 ships of varying sizes appeared where moments before there had been only empty space. At the front, the massive Retribution led the way, its engines glowing blue against the blackness. All ships reporting successful transit, said Officer Maria Bell from her station on the bridge. No damage or casualties. Commander Thomas Reed nodded, his eyes fixed on the main view screen. Ahead lay Proxima Beta, once a thriving human mining colony, now a Dominion processing center run by the Krell. Intelligence reports indicated minimal defenses. The Dominion had grown comfortable in their victory. Scan for enemy vessels, Thomas ordered. 3 patrol ships near the planet, Maria reported. Standard Krell design. Nothing our fleet can't handle. Thomas turned to his tactical officer, Ryan Jones. Initiate Phase 1 of the operation. I want those patrol ships disabled, not destroyed. No casualties if possible. Ryan nodded. Sending commands to Strike Team now. Thomas watched as 5 smaller ships broke formation from the main fleet and accelerated toward Proxima Beta. These were the Wolf-class ships, fast, agile, and equipped with the new phase shift technology that allowed them to partially exist out of normal space, making them nearly impossible to target. Let's hope the tech works as well in the field as it did in testing, Thomas muttered. His second-in-command, Jack Foster, stood beside him. If it doesn't, we have backup plans. We always do, Thomas agreed. On the view screen, the Wolf ships approached the unsuspecting Krell patrols. The alien vessels showed no signs of alarm. They hadn't yet detected the human ships. The phase shift technology was working. Wolf Squadron in position, Ryan announced. Preparing to engage. Thomas leaned forward. Begin the operation. General Dorn was enjoying his meal when the alarms began blaring throughout the Proxima Beta Command Center. He slammed down his food and stormed into the main control room. Report, he demanded. The Krell officer at the main console looked up, his 4 eyes wide with confusion. Sir, our patrol ships are under attack. By whom? Dorn asked, moving to look at the screen himself. Unknown vessels, the officer replied. They appeared out of nowhere. Our sensors didn't detect their approach. Dorn stared at the tactical display. 3 Dominion patrol ships were drifting, disabled but intact. The attacking vessels were like nothing he had ever seen before, sleek, dark ships that seemed to flicker in and out of sensor range. Send all available forces to intercept, Dorn ordered, and alert Dominion Command. Sir, another officer called out, we're detecting more ships, many more. The sensor display suddenly lit up with hundreds of contacts emerging from the darkness of space. Dorn felt his scales tighten against his body, a Krell reaction to extreme stress. That's impossible, he whispered. There is no fleet that large in this sector. Sir, the communications officer interrupted. We're receiving a transmission from the unknown vessels. It's being broadcast on all frequencies. Dorn swallowed hard. Put it through. The screen changed to show a human face. Dorn felt his blood run cold. The human was wearing a uniform unlike any Dorn had seen before, but unmistakably military in design. This is Commander Thomas Reed of the human vessel Retribution, the human said calmly. Your forces are surrounded and outgunned. Power down your weapons and prepare to surrender the planet. The control room fell silent. Humans. Impossible. The humans had been eliminated as a spacefaring species 5 years ago. Earth was under Dominion control. The colonies had been conquered. This is some kind of trick, Dorn said, finding his voice. The humans are extinct. The human on the screen smiled slightly. We were not extinct. We were preparing. We have returned to reclaim what is ours. The transmission ended, leaving the screen blank. Sir, the tactical officer said, his voice shaking, more ships are approaching the planet. Our defenses cannot stop them. Dorn knew he had only one option. Send a distress call to the nearest Dominion fleet. Tell them the humans have returned. On board the Retribution, Thomas watched as the human forces secured Proxima Beta with minimal resistance. The Krell defenders, caught completely by surprise, had surrendered after a brief show of force. All ground teams reporting success, Maria announced. The processing center is under our control. Minimal casualties on both sides. Thomas nodded with satisfaction. And the civilian population. Mostly Krell workers, Jack reported. They're being contained in their living quarters. No resistance. Secure a perimeter and establish our forward base, Thomas ordered. I want this planet operational as our foothold within 24 hours. As his crew carry out his orders, Thomas moved to the communication station. Broadcast the second message to all Dominion frequencies, he instructed. It's time they all knew. The communications officer nodded and activated the system. Throughout Dominion space, on every planet, ship, and station, all communications were suddenly interrupted by a single message. Humanity has returned. We come to reclaim our worlds. Those who stand with us will find peace. Those who stand against us will face the full might of the human Armada. Marcus Reed couldn't believe what he was hearing. The small radio he had built from scavenged parts was picking up a transmission unlike anything he had heard in 5 years. A human voice, clear and strong, announcing humanity's return. Is it real? Asked Tom, his voice barely above a whisper. Could it really be happening? Marcus adjusted the radio, trying to get a clearer signal. It's coming from off-planet. It's being broadcast everywhere. Around them, the other resistance members gathered, hope dawning on faces that had known only struggle and loss for years. "They're coming back," said an older woman named Mary, "just like we always believed they would." Marcus stood up, determination filling him. "We need to contact them. Let them know we're still here." "The Dominion will be monitoring all frequencies more closely than ever," Tom warned. "Then we'll have to take bigger risks," Marcus replied. "This is what we've been waiting for." He moved to a map of the old city that was pinned to the wall of their underground hideout. "The Dominion has a communications array here," he said, pointing to a structure on the edge of what had once been a major human city. "If we can access it, we can send a stronger signal, one that might reach our returning fleet." "That place is heavily guarded," Tom pointed out. "Not for long," Marcus said with a grim smile. "The Dominion just got some very bad news. They'll be scrambling, confused, reassigning forces. This is our chance." He looked around at the faces of his fellow resistance fighters. For years, they had fought simply to survive, to remind the Dominion that humans would never be truly conquered. Now, they had a real chance to fight back. "Prepare your weapons," Marcus ordered. "We move tonight." On the Dominion homeworld, the High Council gathered in emergency session. The chamber was filled with representatives of each member species, all talking over one another in panic. "Silence," shouted the High Counselor, an ancient varl whose gray skin hung in folds from his tall frame. "We must approach this crisis with clear minds." "Crisis?" snarled a Krell representative. "This is a catastrophe. The humans were supposed to be extinct. Clearly, some escaped our notice," the High Counselor replied calmly. "The question now is how to respond." "We must mobilize the entire Dominion fleet," the Krell insisted. "Crush this human rebellion before it spreads." A murmur of agreement rose from some council members, but not all. The Varl representative stood, her voice cutting through the noise. "Perhaps we should consider another approach. The humans have only reclaimed one planet, a mining colony. They'd broadcast a message of peace for those who do not oppose them." "You suggest surrender?" The Krell's voice was filled with disgust. "I suggest we avoid a costly war," the Varl replied. "One that, given the size of the fleet they have revealed, we might not win." The chamber erupted in arguments once more. The High Counselor watched, concern etched on his ancient face. The Dominion had never faced a threat like this, a species returning from supposed extinction with technology that seemed to surpass their own. One thing was clear: the galaxy was about to change forever. News of the human return spread like wildfire through Dominion space. On every planet, moon, and space station, aliens gathered around information terminals, watching the same footage over and over. Human warships appearing from nowhere, disabling Krell defense forces with weapons the Dominion had never seen before. 3 days after the taking of Proxima Beta, Thomas stood on the bridge of the Retribution, reviewing the latest intelligence reports. The human fleet had split into 3 battle groups, each targeting a different Dominion shipyard. The element of surprise was still on their side, but it wouldn't last forever. "Status of Battle Group 2, Thomas asked. Jack brought up a holographic display showing the positions of the human ships. "They've reached the Centauri shipyards. Minimal resistance so far. The Dominion forces are scattered, responding too slowly." "And Battle Group 3? "On schedule to reach the Rigel shipyards in 6 hours, Jack reported, "though our scouts have detected increased Dominion activity in that sector. They may be facing stronger opposition." Thomas nodded. Admiral Wilson's strategy was working perfectly. By striking simultaneously at multiple targets, they were forcing the Dominion to spread their defenses thin. The aliens had grown complacent during the years they believed humans were extinct. "Sir," Maria called from her station, "we're receiving a transmission from an unidentified source. It's on an old Earth military frequency." Thomas straightened. "Source? It appears to be coming from Earth itself." "Sir." The bridge fell silent. Earth, or Terran Prime, as the Dominion now called it, was supposed to be under tight Dominion control. How could anyone there be broadcasting on military channels? "Put it through," Thomas ordered. The speakers crackled with static. Then a voice broke through. "To the human fleet, this is Earth Resistance Group Alpha. We've taken control of a Dominion communications array. We don't know if you can hear us, but if you can, Earth still stands. Repeat, Earth still stands." Thomas felt a chill run down his spine. Earth still had human defenders, fighting after all these years. "Can we respond?" he asked. Maria nodded. "Channel open, sir." Thomas took a deep breath. "Earth Resistance, this is Commander Thomas Reed of the Human Defense Force vessel Retribution. We read you. What is your situation?" There was a long pause, then the voice returned, filled with emotion. "Commander Reed, this is Marcus Reed of the Earth Resistance. There are approximately 10,000 of us still fighting on Earth. We've been waiting for your return." 10,000. Out of the billions who had once called Earth home, only 10,000 remained free. Thomas felt a mixture of grief and pride. Those humans had survived against impossible odds, keeping the fight alive when most would have surrendered. "Mr. Reed, we are coming for you," Thomas promised. "But we need your help. We need intelligence on Earth's defenses, Dominion troop placements, anything you can provide." "We've been gathering that information for years, Commander," Marcus replied. "But we need to be quick. The Dominion will detect this transmission soon." For the next few minutes, Marcus quickly transmitted everything the Resistance knew about Earth's defenses. Thomas listened carefully, occasionally asking questions. The picture that emerged was both troubling and hopeful. The Dominion had strong defenses around Earth, but they were focused outward, not expecting an attack from within. "One more thing, Commander," Marcus said as their time grew short. "The Dominion has been conducting experiments on humans. They're trying to understand what makes us fight so hard, why we never surrender. They fear us. Remember that. Transmission is being jammed," Maria warned. "Marcus, we're losing your signal," Thomas said quickly. "Hold on. We're coming. Operation Homecoming is underway." "We'll be waiting, Commander," Marcus replied, his voice beginning to break up. "Earth will." The transmission cut off. Thomas stood silent for a moment, then turned to his crew. "Send a message to all battle groups. Phase 2 begins now." Lisa Gray ran through the corridors of the Dominion Research Station, alarms blaring all around her. Her cover was blown. A routine security scan had detected the missing files, and it hadn't taken the Krull scientists long to trace the breach to her. She rounded a corner and found herself face to face with 2 Dominion security guards. Without hesitating, she dropped to the floor and swept her leg out, knocking one off balance. Before the other could react, she was up again, striking hard at vulnerable points. The guards fell, and Lisa continued running. The hangar bay was just ahead. If she could reach a shuttle, she might escape. The information she had stolen was too valuable to lose. Detailed analysis of Dominion fleet movements, defensive capabilities, and most importantly, evidence of division within the Dominion itself. Lisa slammed her hand against the door panel, but it remained red. Locked. She pulled out the small device she had used to steal the files and plugged it into the panel. It would take time to override. Time she didn't have. Behind her, she heard more guards approaching. Lisa turned, pressing her back against the door, and drew the small weapon she had hidden in her boot. It wouldn't be enough to fight her way out, but she wasn't going down without a fight. The guards appeared at the end of the corridor, weapons raised. "Surrender, human," their leader ordered. Lisa aimed her weapon, preparing for her final stand. Then the lights flickered. A deep rumbling shook the station. The guards looked up in confusion just as emergency alarms began to sound. "Station under attack," announced an automated voice. "All personnel to battle stations." The door behind Lisa suddenly slid open. She didn't wait to see why, diving through the opening into the hangar bay. Inside, Chaos reigned. Dominion personnel ran in all directions as explosions rocked the station. Through the massive bay windows, Lisa could see the cause. Ships. Human ships. A squadron of Wolf-class vessels was attacking the station, their weapons targeting defensive systems with incredible precision. The station shook again as another blast hit nearby. Lisa ran to the nearest shuttle, pushing past a confused Krell technician. She jumped into the pilot's seat and activated the engines. The shuttle lifted off just as more explosions tore through the hangar bay. Lisa guided it toward the bay doors, which were beginning to close as part of the station's automatic defense protocol. "Not today," she muttered, pushing the engines to maximum. The shuttle shot forward, barely clearing the doors before they slammed shut behind her. Outside, the battle raged. Lisa maneuvered the shuttle away from the fighting, then opened a communications channel. "Human vessels, this is Lisa Gray, intelligence operative," she broadcast, requesting immediate pickup. "I have critical intelligence for command." A human voice responded almost immediately. "Agent Gray, this is Wolf Squadron Leader. We've been looking for you. Follow coordinates being transmitted to your shuttle. We'll provide escort." As Lisa adjusted her course, she looked back at the research station. The Dominion had thought humans were broken, defeated. They were wrong. And now, Lisa had the intelligence that might help humanity win this war. The Dominion Council chamber was in chaos. Reports were coming in from all sectors. Human fleets attacking shipyards, supply depots, and research stations simultaneously. The Dominion forces were struggling to respond, caught completely off guard by the sudden, coordinated assault. "We need to consolidate our forces," the Krell representative insisted. "Pull back to key systems and establish a defensive line, and abandon our outer territories." The Varl asked. "You would have us surrender before we've even properly fought." "I would have us survive," the Krell shouted. The High Counselor watched the argument with growing concern. For the first time in centuries, the Dominion faced a threat that could actually destroy them. The humans had returned with technology that seemed to surpass their own, with tactics that kept them one step ahead, and with a determination born from 70 years of planning their revenge. "Perhaps," the Varl representative said quietly, "we should consider opening negotiations." The chamber fell silent. Even suggesting peace with humans was unthinkable just days ago. "Negotiate? With humans?" the Krell sputtered. "After what we did to their homeworld." "Precisely because of what we did," the Varl replied. "We tried to exterminate them. We failed. Now they have returned, stronger than before. If we continue this war, there may not be a Dominion left to save." The High Counselor looked from one representative to another. The Dominion had stood united for 1,000 years. Now, as the human Armada advanced through their territory, that unity was fracturing. The greatest empire the galaxy had ever known was beginning to crumble from within. Admiral Kate Wilson watched the holographic display from her bed on Haven. At 92, she was too frail to join the fleet, but she insisted on being kept updated on every development of Operation Homecoming. The display showed hundreds of human ships converging on Earth, the final phase of the operation she had spent 70 years planning. "The Dominion Defense Fleet is mobilizing," reported her aide, a young officer named David. "They've positioned 200 ships in Earth orbit." Kate nodded weakly. This was expected. The Dominion would throw everything they had into defending Earth, not because the planet itself was particularly valuable to them, but because it was symbolically important. If humans reclaimed their homeworld, the myth of Dominion invincibility would be shattered forever. "What about the Varl ships?" Kate asked. "They've withdrawn from the Dominion fleet," David confirmed. 8 Varl cruisers have taken up position in the neutral zone. "They're not joining us, but they're not fighting against us either." Kate smiled faintly. The intelligence Lisa Gray had stolen from the research station had proven invaluable. It confirmed what Kate had suspected, that the Varl, one of the founding species of the Dominion, had opposed the extinction campaign against humans from the beginning. They could be potential allies in the new galactic order that would emerge from this conflict. Send a message to Commander Reed, Kate ordered. Tell him. She paused, feeling her strength ebbing. Tell him that we did not survive to seek vengeance. We survived to reclaim our right to exist. David nodded and moved to send the transmission. Kate closed her eyes, saving her energy. She knew she wouldn't live to see Earth freed, but she had lived long enough to see humanity return from the brink of extinction to become a power capable of challenging the Dominion. That would have to be enough. Thomas received Admiral Wilson's message as the Retribution led the human fleet toward Earth. He understood what she meant. This wasn't about revenge. It was about survival, about securing a future for humanity. All ships in position, Jack reported. The resistance forces on Earth are standing by. Thomas looked at the tactical display. The human fleet had surrounded Earth, cutting off any chance of Dominion reinforcements. But the 200 Dominion warships in orbit wouldn't surrender without a fight. Open a channel to the Dominion fleet, Thomas ordered. The communications officer nodded. Channel open. Sir. Thomas straightened his uniform. This is Commander Thomas Reed of the Human Defense Force. Your fleet is surrounded. Your empire is fracturing. The Varl have already withdrawn their support. Surrender now, and you will be treated with the same mercy you denied humanity 5 years ago. There was a long pause. Then a familiar face appeared on the screen. General Dorn, the Krell commander who had led the final assault on Earth 5 years earlier. We do not surrender to extinct species, Dorn said coldly. The Dominion has ruled this galaxy for 1,000 years. We will not be defeated by humans. Thomas had expected this response. The Krell, in particular, were too proud to surrender. You have 1 hour to reconsider, Thomas said, then cut the transmission. He turned to his crew. Prepare all ships for battle, and send the signal to the resistance on Earth. Tell them it's time. Marcus Reed led his team through the underground tunnels beneath what had once been London. For 5 years, they had used these ancient sewers and subway tunnels to move undetected through Dominion-controlled territory. Now they were heading for the surface, toward the massive defense control center the Dominion had built on the ruins of the old city. Everyone clear on the plan? Marcus asked. The 20 resistance fighters nodded grimly. They were outnumbered and outgunned, but they had surprise on their side. And for the first time in 5 years, they had hope. The human fleet will begin their attack in exactly 15 minutes, Marcus continued. Every Dominion soldier will be focused on the sky. That's our window to take the control center. Tom, who had been with Marcus since the beginning, checked his weapon. And once we're inside, we disable the ground-based defense systems, Marcus explained. Without those defenses, our fleet can break through much more easily. The team moved forward, reaching a service door that led up to the streets. Marcus checked his watch. 10 minutes until the attack began. Remember, he told his fighters, we're not just fighting for ourselves anymore. We're fighting for all of humanity, both here and on Haven. The resistance fighters nodded, determination on their faces. For 5 years, they had fought simply to survive, to prove that humans could not be erased. Now, they were fighting to win. The space around Earth erupted in light as the human fleet opened fire. The Dominion ships responded immediately, and the battle for Earth began. On the bridge of the Retribution, Thomas watched as the first exchanges lit up the tactical display. The human ships were using their phase shift technology to great effect, appearing and disappearing from normal space, making them nearly impossible to target. Their firing patterns are predictable, Jack noted. They haven't adapted to our technology yet. Thomas nodded. Maintain our current strategy. Focus fire on their command ships. The Retribution shuddered as it took a direct hit from a Dominion cruiser. Damage reports flashed across Thomas's console. Shields holding at 60%, Maria reported. That was their newest weapon. Some kind of energy projector we haven't seen before. Thomas frowned. The Dominion was bringing out their most advanced technology now. This wouldn't be an easy victory. Sir, the communications officer called out suddenly. We're receiving a signal from Earth. The Resistance has taken control of the main defense center. A cheer went up from the bridge crew. Thomas allowed himself a small smile. Tell them to disable the planetary defense grid. Now's our chance to break through. General Dorn stared in disbelief as the tactical display showed human forces taking control of the Earth Defense Center. How had the Resistance, which the Dominion had been hunting for years, managed to infiltrate their most secure facility? "Sir, the defense grid is powering down," an officer reported in panic. "Our ground-based weapons are being disabled." Dorn slammed his fist against the console. "Override the system. Lock the humans out." "We can't, sir. They've enacted a complete system shutdown." Dorn looked out the viewport of his command ship at the battle raging around them. The human fleet was pressing its advantage, targeting Dominion ships with terrifying precision. Without the support of the ground-based defenses, the space battle was beginning to tip in humanity's favor. "Deploy the Sunfire," Dorn ordered, his voice dropping to a low growl. The officers around him fell silent. The Sunfire was the Dominion's weapon of last resort, capable of rendering a planet uninhabitable. It had never been used before, not even during the most desperate conflicts in Dominion history. "Sir," his second-in-command said quietly, "if we deploy the Sunfire, we'll destroy Earth completely." "Better destroyed than in human hands," Dorn replied coldly. "Prepare the weapon." Thomas received the warning from Lisa Gray just in time. Her knowledge of Dominion weapons systems had allowed her to recognize the energy signature of the Sunfire as it began to power up. "They're going to destroy Earth rather than lose it," Thomas realized, horror spreading through him. "All ships, focus fire on the Dominion command vessel. We have to stop them before they deploy the Sunfire." The human fleet shifted its attack, concentrating all firepower on Dorn's command ship. But the massive vessel was heavily shielded, and the Sunfire continued to charge. "We're not going to stop it in time," Jack said grimly. Thomas made a quick calculation. There was only one option left. "Clear the bridge," he ordered. "All hands to escape pods." Jack stared at him. "Sir, the Retribution is the only ship with enough power to stop the Sunfire," Thomas explained. "But we'll have to get closer. Much closer." Understanding dawned on Jack's face. "A suicide run." Thomas nodded. "Get everyone off the ship. That's an order." As the bridge crew reluctantly evacuated, Thomas took manual control of the Retribution. He set a direct course for Dorn's command ship, pushing the engines beyond their safety limits. The massive human flagship accelerated toward the Dominion vessel, its forward weapons firing continuously to weaken the enemy shields. Thomas waited until the last possible moment before launching himself toward the escape pod bay. The Retribution, its engines overloading, slammed into the Dominion command ship just as the Sunfire reached full power. The resulting explosion tore both vessels apart and sent a shockwave through the surrounding space. In his escape pod, Thomas watched as the Dominion fleet, leaderless and demoralized, began to break formation. Some ships continued fighting, but others began to retreat. On Earth, Marcus Reed and his resistance fighters witnessed the explosion from the captured defense center. They didn't know exactly what had happened, but they could see the Dominion forces falling into disarray. "Send a message to all resistance cells," Marcus ordered. "Tell them it's time to rise up. Earth is ours again." 1 month later, Thomas stood on a hill overlooking what had once been London. The rebuilding had already begun. Human ships arrived daily from Haven, bringing supplies and colonists eager to reclaim their ancestral home. The war wasn't over. The Dominion still controlled many former human worlds, though without the Krell leadership, their forces were scattered and disorganized. The Varl had officially broken from the Dominion, offering an alliance with humanity. Thomas looked up at the sky, where human ships moved freely in Earth orbit for the first time in 5 years. Admiral Wilson hadn't lived to see this day. She had passed away peacefully on Haven, just as news of Earth's liberation reached her. But her vision had been realized. Humanity had not only survived extinction, it had returned stronger than ever, ready to take its place among the stars. The species that everyone thought was extinct had not only returned, but had changed the galaxy forever.